Whoever told you college football takes a break, they lied to your face. Because a lot of people out there, to quote Kendrick Lamar, they're not like us. They don't enjoy this sport in a year-round capacity, and that's unfortunate for them because they miss out on a lot of things that are going on in the college football world as we speak. Welcome in, baby. It is Thursday, May 30th, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet. We have got a phenomenal show lined up for you. We're fresh off the On3 Elite Series event. It was right here in Nashville. It was like 10 minutes down the road at the W Hotel. We had Will Compton in the building. Lit the entire green room on fire talking to the top athletes in the country playing a high school football set to play their college football careers out in a matter of a year or so. We talked to George MacIntyre at the event. We got that conversation lined up for you on this very show. We talked to Will Compton after he lit the green room on fire and talked to him about the college football tour, his expectations for Nebraska in 2024. How are the vibes on Dylan Raiola? What were you impressed with about him? Because he got to sit down with him in person when they went out there and visited this spring. Well, it wouldn't be a On3 Elite Series if Josh Newberg weren't covering it like better than anybody else in the entire industry. He's going to join the show here in, give or take, I'd say 20 or so minutes to kind of talk through some of his learnings from the event, some of his takeaways as he sat down with all of the top guys across the country while they were here in Nashville. If it sounds like we're talking a little bit fast, it's because we've had a very big week. We've worked a couple of 18-hour days. Work is really even a word I'd put in quotation marks there because it doesn't feel like work necessarily. A lot of caffeine pulls through the system. So we're fired up to have y'all here. We had Andy Staples in Nashville as well, and he was dropping bars about the new college football video game. He got a chance to go play that game in Orlando, and he put out a show, or put out a segment and a show, I suppose, kind of unpacking the things that he learned about the game and the things that he's excited about for the game, having actually played the game not that long ago. So we're going to do a segment a little bit later on in this show saying, what are we hearing as it relates to college football 2025? Obviously, a massive part of what we're hearing is coming from Andy Staples, who, again, played the game in Orlando, I believe it was like a week ago. So we'll unpack that together. We got the College Football 25 gameplay deep dive. I think EA Sports has that video coming out tomorrow, so that'll be a lot of fun. We are going to actually talk some college football, though, as well. We're talking recruiting. We're talking the video game, but we are going to talk some actual ball. Who needs to make the college football playoff? I've got a list of teams here that we will break down together. In addition to that, LSU and USC, they're playing week 1 in Las Vegas. Going to be the best movie we've seen in Vegas since The Hangover, but reports are starting to circulate now, starting to leak out from Saturday Down South, saying that USC, as of 2 years ago, they were saying, hey, actually, can we not do this? Can we not play this game? There's more to that than what meets the social media timeline. So we'll break that down together. We've prefaced a lot on this show. 2 things: subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast. Little bonus thing in there. Third thing, I'll just lie to you. The third thing I'm going to ask you to do, follow me on the socials. Twitter, Instagram, at JD Piquel. We're going to do a lot on those platforms when we're not live on the air to make sure that we are maximizing this community and giving you everything you need, love, and desire when it comes to the college football appetite that you have. So, with that being said, let's get right to it, man. First segment, who needs to make the college football playoff? Not a who is going to make the college football playoff, not a prediction. Who needs it with every fiber of their being? Let's talk about it right now. When I talk about who needs to make the college football playoff, the filter I ran it through was, if this team doesn't make that 12-team field now, with it expanding in 2024, who would have the most physical, emotional, spiritual reaction in a negative sense to being left out? So this will make more sense as we kind of unpack it together. Georgia is probably the obvious one. I think they need to make the college football playoff because, quite frankly, they're too good to not make the college football playoff. And if they don't make the playoff with 12 teams in it now, it would feel a lot like, to me, if Usain Bolt didn't make the final race at the Olympics when he was back there breaking world records. The roster is too good. If they don't make it, I'll go out on a limb and say something went drastically wrong from an injury perspective for Georgia. If they don't make the playoff, I'd be fascinated by that. They have the best odds currently, as we sit here at the end of May, to win the national championship. So, yeah, they should make the college football playoff. Now, Texas, I think, has a little bit more meat on the bone with the discussion of them making or missing the playoff. They are in the top 5 in terms of odds to win the national championship this year. I think the big thing with Texas is you get one chance to make a first impression. We said it with Oklahoma. Same thing is true with Texas. You get one chance as you move into the SEC to legitimize everything that you did a season ago. Because here's what they're going to say. If Texas goes 9-3 and they miss the playoff, they'll say, well, that's what you get in the SEC. You say, well, last year was good, but, Xavier Worthy's gone. All those key pieces on the defensive line are gone. Like, it was a one-year wonder for Texas. Good for you. Pat on the head. Here's the SEC. And that would just drive a lot of folks in Austin absolutely bonkers. Big part of this and this upcoming season is legitimizing what last year was and legitimizing, too, the trajectory of Texas football under Steve Sarkisian. Because if you go off last year, win the Big 12, and you beat Alabama, you make the college football playoff, and then this upcoming season, let's say you finish top 3 in the SEC, you make the playoff, everyone's like, okay, yep, they're headed one direction. Not like the band, but they're headed one direction, and Texas is going to be a force here for years to come under Steve Sarkisian. Again, it would legitimize a lot of what they did in 2023. Oregon, man, they need to make the college football playoff. It's got to be a breakthrough year for Dan Lanning and the Ducks, man. The roster, to me, has very little to no holes. Okay, I look at the defensive line. Mateo Uiagalelei, Jordan Birch, Derek Harmon. They got some dudes now, okay? Look at the quarterback position. Is he new? Yes. But he ain't new to the game now. 6-year vet, salty. Dylan Gabriel, think he's going to be slinging around the yard. They got weapons. Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson. Like, we could go through the whole roster, and that'd be a lot of fun for us to do if you're an Oregon Duck fan. However, the reality of it is, to me, the way that Oregon is trending and the way they have trended over the course of the last couple of years, it's been a lot of close but no cigar. Need the cigar this year in Eugene. Same thing I said about Texas can also be said about Oregon. First year in the Big Ten, kind of establishing where you sit in that bus. Are you up near the driver's seat? Or are you somewhere near the back where you're trying to fight and scratch and claw to get your way up there? We'll see what happens, but it is his third year, his being Dan Lanning. It's his third year being the head man out there in Eugene. They've earned this expectation. They've earned the pressure to take this next step. So Oregon, to me, they got to make it, man. Got to make the college football playoff. Ole Miss was the very first team that came to mind when we put this list together. Reason for that being, Lane Kiffin has said all in, baby. Chips to the table, put him in the middle. Call my bluff if you want to, but he has gone and attacked the portal. They brought some key pieces back. Nick Saban has retired. Like, the door is just cracked open enough for Ole Miss to burst through that thing. So if you want to make a statement in the SEC, you want to really make your mark on this new era of college football, this is your chance now. And the thing with Ole Miss, too, if they do break through, if they do make the college football playoff, I'm a transfer portal guy. I'm a high school recruit. I look at Ole Miss totally differently than if they missed out on that 12-team playoff. Everything you need is in-house to make the playoff. If Ole Miss does not make this 12-team field, this season is a failure. We don't use that word often on this show. We don't really like to say failure that often, but if that happens, with them missing out, that's what it would be. Alabama, I think from an expectation standpoint, it would be a major disappointment if you missed the college football playoff, but like the big thing for me with Alabama is like those Saban withdrawals with him retiring and the Kalen DeBoer era becoming a reality now. Those would hit a lot harder if Bama somehow goes 9-3. Because the thing with Alabama, yes, you lose Nick Saban. Yes, you lost Caleb Downs and a couple of other guys to the portal or the NFL draft. But the cupboard is not empty. They got some dogs out there in Tuscaloosa. Make no mistake about it. They got some absolute dudes out there. So for Alabama, yes, the expectation of that fan base is we make the playoff. We win 10 ball games. We do that in our sleep. If they don't, things get a little bit noisy pretty quickly out there in Tuscaloosa. Ohio State, this one's obvious because if we thought the vibes were bad with them losing to Michigan 3 years in a row, imagine what happens if they go 9-3. They lose to Michigan, they lose to Oregon, lose to somebody else on that schedule. Pick one of those teams, anyone you want. Vibes would be not just bad, like they would be depressing. They would be depressing. Same thing I said about Ole Miss can be said about Ohio State. If they don't make the playoff, then what was this all for? And Ohio State fans would take it a step further. They'd say, make the playoff. That's like the price of admission around here. We're not trying to make the playoff, brother. We're trying to win the whole freaking thing. And you look at that roster, you look at who they got to be their OC, you look at what they did through the portal, you're like, yeah, this thing in Columbus is built to win a national championship. Now, doing it on paper and doing it on the grass, two very different things, but that's where Ohio State sits right now. They're going to have a chance to be one of those top teams in America, be one of the final teams standing when it comes to ultimately competing and winning a national championship. So they also have some of the best odds in Vegas to win the whole darn thing. I think as of right now, they're second in the country. Ohio State, it's about one thing, winning a natty. So failing to even qualify for the dance can't happen. They need to make they need to make the college football playoff and obviously have their sights set on much more than that, winning a national championship. Notre Dame, you look at the schedule, you look at the college football tectonic plate shifting, you look at how they're trending over there in South Bend, they got to make the college football playoff. They're not in a conference, and people like myself are already talking about how they probably should do that with the way the college football playoff is probably going to look. They worked the portal this past offseason. You go and upgrade at quarterback, you get Riley Leonard from Duke, you go and attack the wide receiver position as well. You add Chris Mitchell, you add Jaden Harrison, guys that are absolute burners for you on the outside. This roster has a lot more juice offensively. Then you go in and bring Mike Denbrock back to South Bend, a guy who just coached a Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback out there at LSU. They got all the pieces. Got all the pieces. So there's the roster side of things, the way they're continuing to, in my mind, make strides towards being a college football playoff kind of team. And then you look at what they have on the schedule, okay? You're at A&M, you got Louisville, you got Florida State, you're at USC. If 10-2 or 11-1 is getting you in the college football playoff, much less going undefeated, I think it's there. I think it's there. A&M is going to be tough, but it's Mike Elko's first year out there. Louisville, who knows? It could be sneaky. Florida State, they're 83rd in returning production in America, so we'll see what they are. USC, big question mark. Notre Dame, from a roster talent level, will be on par or better than all of those teams. It's set up for them to make the college football playoff. This is the other thing I want to make sure we say. And this is kind of a theme for us when talking about Notre Dame. The branding of where they are right now and the way college football, like I said at the top of this thing, the tectonic plates, the way they're shifting. If Notre Dame goes and makes the college football playoff this year, they make the college football playoff next year, you know how that changes the way that recruits would view what Marcus Freeman is doing out there? I think it goes from, well, Notre Dame, they're a good school, good brand, to, hey, we're competing for national championships every single year. We just need this 5-star. We just need you, Johnny 4-star, to come play for us and get us over the hump. Do you want to be a part of getting us there? I think that pitch in itself is wildly intriguing to guys in that position, and I think ultimately that could be the difference maker for them getting to the top of the college football mountain, which is their expectation. You're not playing for conference titles. You're not playing for a New Year's Six bowl game. You are playing to win national championships. So if you can kind of brand yourself and have that accolade of being a consistent college football playoff team, starting with this year, you start going from top 10 recruiting class, top 5 recruiting class to top 3 recruiting class, which, make no mistake about it, that is the difference between a Notre Dame and insert whatever national championship contender or national championship team you've seen over the course of the last 10 to 15 years in college football, for the most part. Last team to talk about here, Penn State. They are, even before we expanded the playoff, even before we tripled the field, which to me was just wild to begin with, Penn State was building for this year. And what I mean by that is that class with Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, Abdul Carter, they're all here for this last season. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to have some of those guys return. I think Drew Aller, if he came back for another year, it could serve him well. But the harsh reality is you're not having that core nucleus of guys all together this time next year in Happy Valley. And if you did, that wildly surprised me. They were building to make the 4-team playoff. Now, with all those guys having more experience, you add some new coordinators, some by your choice, some not by your choice. They are built to go and make the playoff. They were building to go and make the playoff. But also the schedule is the big part for me here. No Oregon, no Michigan. You get Ohio State at the crib. West Virginia is your toughest non-conference game. Penn State, we'll say this right now, they should be 11-1. They should be. Now, will they do that? Probably got to make some more moves on offense. You got to be explosive to maximize Drew Aller. Got to have some pass catchers step up. Julian Fleming, the Ohio State transfer, needs you to step up big out there, brother. They're built to go 11-1 with this roster and with this schedule. So those are the teams for me that need to make the college football playoff. I will just mention Florida State. I don't know if need is the way that I feel about them, but I do think it would obviously behoove them, which is we never say behoove on this show, but we'll throw it in there. I think it'd be huge for them if they could make the college football playoff, because it would, similar to what I said about Texas, it would just legitimize everything they did a year ago, which would be nice. Also, with how many guys they don't have coming back, to be able to do that, to have a season like you had last year and make the college football playoff and win the ACC, it also probably makes you feel even more encouraged that you have Mike Norvell as your guy out there. Last thing, you're the team in the state, too, if you get that done. Again, you're the team in the state for third year in a row or whatever it would end up being. So Florida State, lots at stake like we've talked about, but the teams that, for me, really need to make the college football playoff, Georgia's obvious. It would be wild if they didn't. Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss, Alabama, massive expectations. Nick Saban's gone. Can you keep that fan base happy, Kalen DeBoer? We'll find out. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, to me, all need to make the college football playoff. So we're doing the math here. Quite a few teams, and the G5 is going to get a team in there automatically. It's going to be tough for everyone to make it in based on the way these schedules shake out. But regardless, it's May, still very early on. We'll continue to talk about this going forward, but that's how we see the college football playoff picture as it stands right now with who needs to make it in. So, again, On3 Elite Series was absolutely sensational. Had some of the top prospects in the country in Nashville. The future of college football was here, and we had a lot of great speakers. DeAndre Hopkins came through. Will Levis came through. Jimmy Sexton, all-star agent, came through and dropped some knowledge on these guys. Will Compton sat in the green room and spoke to that entire audience, and, I mean, he lit that place on fire. There's a social clip out there of him talking about how to really maximize your opportunity being a college athlete, and that was phenomenal. Go check that out. We were fortunate enough, though, to sit down with Will Compton and just talk some ball, talk about their spring tour they took with Bussin With The Boys, which is one of the top podcasts in America, regardless of what you're interested in, whether it's sports or otherwise, in America, one of the top podcasts from Barstool Sports. So with that being said, we talked spring tour, we talked his alma mater, Nebraska, got a lot of his thoughts, and a really great conversation. We appreciate him making time. So without further ado, here is from Bussin With The Boys at Barstool Sports, Will Compton. Joining us now at the On3 Elite Series from Bussin With The Boys. He just lit the green room on fire. Will Compton. Will, appreciate you being here, man. This is phenomenal to have you here.
Dude, thanks for having me. It is like, my wife and I were laying in bed last night. She was like, you're really just about to leave in the middle of family vacation, aren't you? We laughed. Fortunately, it's like I get to come in and out. I'll be back in Rosemary at, like 3 o'clock or 3:10 p.m. So I'll be able to hit dinner. Yes. It works out. It was one of those things that, had it been another endeavor, it would have been a no. But, dude, I don't know, man. I've gotten to talk to a few teams before. I was out in Nebraska recently. I got to talk to that team. And I just enjoy kind of talking about, the experiences with transitioning from football, because I just think it's such like an important thing for athletes, the realities of life after ball, life after your sport. And so knowing I was getting to do that coming here, it's kind of like one of those personal things I wanted to do.
Yeah, I hope we have the cameras rolling so we can put some of like the social clips out there of you on the whiteboard and talking through with the guys. I mean, it was phenomenal. Obviously, you played in the league for a long time, also played in Nebraska. Were you always a college football fan growing up, or like what was that like for you when it comes to your consumption of the game?
I was a massive football fan, more NFL than college. Mizzou wasn't very good. I went to Catholic school growing up, so I was a Notre Dame fan. But as far as the NFL, like the Dallas Cowboys, that's, I love the NFL. The running back, you had Terrell Davis, Eddie George, Marshall Faulk, Emmitt Smith, all those cats. My dad loved the Cowboys growing up, so we were kind of just Cowboys fans by association. But just playing in the front yard, I remember being just a young pup, just pretending to be Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, Nate Newton, Jay Novacek, all those cats on the Cowboys. But I've always loved football.
Now you talk to all the biggest names in the sport, whether it be college or pro. And like, I love y'all's podcast because it makes it so digestible for someone like myself who never even sniffed the NFL. Well, like I watched it on set, never even like got a good look at it. What's the process for y'all pre-show? Is it like we're in a group chat and we just roll with it? We turn on the cameras. We talk pre-show meeting. What's the lead up for y'all?
Brother, up until recently, we would essentially just roll. It just depends if we're having somebody on the bus. If nobody's on the bus, we're kind of just rolling. Somebody's on the bus, you might check their Wikipedia or know what's going on a little bit, but it's like you just want to have those organic things. If somebody has something going on and I don't necessarily know about it, I see benefit in almost being the person who doesn't know what's going on. Whereas you have the group that can chirp you. How does Will not know this person, had an album come out or a movie come out? But I feel like there's going to be a lot of audience listening. It's like, yo, what does this person do for a living? So you kind of have that introductory level of the interview. But now recently we've been doing a little more pre-production meetings since we have segments, since we have sponsors that come on board to do stuff. We need to be a little more intentional about what we're talking about, or at least have some type of structure in our show. So we do that stuff now. But dude, with Taylor, man, he makes it easy. The dude can talk. He can talk with the best of them. He can whack shop with the best of the boys. But it's we have a fun crew.
It's phenomenal. And JP Hovey also, shout out him.
Yeah, shout out JP Hovey.
Yes. Yeah, Hovey.
Yeah.
Good to know. Awesome. I know. I mean, y'all went on the road too recently. The spring tour was phenomenal. Want to kind of jump around and hear about your experiences. But let's start with Nebraska, man. That's the alma mater.
Yeah.
They're getting it turned around over there. Just overall impressions from that visit and talking to those guys.
Oh, a winning culture is here now. Now the outcome needs to come. And I think that will happen. I see us being a double-digit ball club this year. And by double-digit, I mean wins. I expect a big year, man. I think we all do. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody had a great transfer class, had a great recruiting class. Dylan Raiola's there. There's a lot of excitement around the Big Red, but there is every year. It's like that cycle, that meme where it's you get excited, you get let down, you get excited, you get let down. But in a place like that, man, you string along some wins. I will guarantee a bowl game this year. As far as guaranteeing the double-digit wins, I won't do that because I don't want to place the expectation on the team. Sure. I don't want to be upset and disappointed. But also, we can win 10.
Lock it in.
Yeah, we can win 10.
Over under like 7.5.
That's easy.
That's not far and at all. That's very attainable.
Over under 7.5. That's a lock.
Lock it in.
I won't say guarantee. Yeah, lock it in. That's Will Compton's lock. Is over 7.5 wins. I feel 99.9% really great about the over there.
Let's go, baby. Okay, locking it in. A little free play for the Bulls. You sat down with Dylan Raiola, and for those that aren't as familiar, it is incredibly difficult to sit down with a true freshman in terms of getting the clearance from the SID and the study. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing itself. After sitting down with him, what were your overall impressions of just what this guy has from the neck up?
I don't want to fluff his ego, dude. He could be watching. He's a young cat. All these kids, everybody wants to see what's being said about him. But, dude, I was just impressed with his confidence. He's a young kid. He should be going to the prom, right? He should be finishing up high school right now as we speak. And he came early, and getting to talk with him, and even after and everything like that, the way he kind of carries himself, you can tell he's got that, dare I say, the it factor, with confidence, a style about himself to where nothing is really too big for him or too much for him. Versus I feel like most freshmen, I was like this, you kind of timid, you're feeling yourself around a little bit. He seems to be very comfortable being on campus right now, being around the guys, got to see him at practice, being around the fellas. And I feel like that was the most impressive thing, especially again, he's young. Should just be finishing high school.
Yeah. And all the pressure he has on him was rated.
I compared him on him. Yeah, I compared him in the interview with that of Jesus Christ in the New Testament. Coming to a place like Nebraska.
What a comp.
Yeah.
What a comp. That's tremendous.
Yeah. You come into a place like Nebraska, that is his comparison. With the decade of losing that Nebraska's experienced, this kid he's got the ability to walk on water there. They have success there. He's remembered forever. Yeah. We're talking statue.
For renaming Lincoln.
We're renaming the stadium.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we talked about potential win totals and stuff like that. We like the over. We feel good about double digits. As a fan, what is a win total where you're like, okay, I'm content with it. I can live with us being, X record.
10-2.
10-2. 9-3.
Well, okay. Yeah. Here's what I'll say. 9-3 would be awesome.
Okay.
8-4 would be awesome. I feel like 8 is the – if we go 7-5, I think I'm hurting.
Okay.
I think I'm hurting inside. I know we're going bowling and we're still excited and hey, it's another baby step, right?
Yeah.
But I think no matter what, I'm laughing too because I'm just thinking like everything you get taught as a player is 0. You can't place an expectation. You can't place a number. But no matter what, we got to get at least 8.
Let's go.
At least.
Let's go.
I'm personally disappointed with 8 because I think we're better than that.
Uh-huh.
But if I'm talking to the bigger base of Nebraska, I think 8. 8 is the minimum.
Okay, that's the threshold.
I think 7, I might have to start, having some more real conversations with Coach Rule.
Sure. I mean, but that's kind of what he does. Like his second year is usually right around in that 8-win category. Like, I mean, he took Baylor that was like a 1-2 loss or 1-2 loss win operation when he got there in their second year.
Forget that, dude.
Bowl games.
Forget that, dude. I get it. I get that everybody wants to go by rules. Like,
yeah.
Hey, here's in year 1, here's in year 2. But you realize last year we're a handful of games away. We're play away from being a 9-3 ball club.
100%.
Like you're looking at a team that was the most turnover team in the country, and we just had average turnover play. Mm-hmm. We're an 8-9 win football team.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. You get average quarterback play. You just don't fumble the football, dude. I apologize for cussing on a child's program, but you take care of the football. We are in the right. We are in the winner's seat. So that's why when I say the expectation this year is, we were in Iowa last year. Iowa just happened to win. How many games did Iowa win last year? Did they win 10?
They won 10.
And they're built the same way we are. 100%. Defense, they had a run game, but they just didn't turn the ball over. We're the exact same football team. We're returning the majority of starters on defense, year 2 in Coach White's system, and now with some good quarterback play and the weapons we're bringing in,
it's a wrap.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say we're a 10-win football team.
I love it. Top 5 returning production in the country overall for Nebraska from last season. Really quickly, I want to hit on some spots that y'all went throughout the spring. Florida State, phenomenal content y'all did there with DJU and Coach Norvell and Patrick Payton. What was the vibe for you in Tallahassee?
It was awesome. Every place we went to Florida State, Oregon. Obviously, Nebraska is really hospitable. Michigan's the same way when we go there. And Alabama, man. We got to go to these spots, and their staff, from the SID to everybody in the building, was extremely accommodating for us, which is awesome. It's like the one thing is like, hey, try to be on, somewhat good behavior. Everybody sees the clips. Everybody's seen the videos. Everybody sees what our brand is about. We're also with Barstool Sports, so you kind of have that, I guess, stigma, but it's like you're reassuring that, hey, we want to do nothing but lift your program up so we can come back.
Yeah.
In the fall, come see a game, or we just want to have a good relationship. It's not like we want to come and mess everything up right out of the gate and give a bad taste in your mouth. But everybody was extremely accommodating, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's no, outside the lines going on with y'all during those interviews with those coaches. It's all phenomenal stuff. Y'all sat down with Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. I think one of the concerns people have around him is hey, is he too normal of a human being? Because Nick Saban obviously is the GOAT. Yeah. What was your impression with Coach DeBoer sitting down with him?
I thought he was awesome, man. I mean, yeah, they have different, cultural things that they do. I want to say they might have games in the locker room or a basketball hoop. They listen to music at practice. You can tell there's a little bit more lax there, but he's been successful as a head coach everywhere he's been. D1AA, what was it? Sioux Falls, where he started.
NAIA,
NAIA, the Pac-12, Pac-12. He's been successful everywhere, bro. So, yeah, I think with his leadership, even with cultural changes that they have internally, I think he's going to crush it because you got the best talent at a place like Alabama.
Covered his stuff.
Yeah.
Covered also Stockton UB in Oregon. Moving to the Big Ten. Sat down with Coach Lanning. He just seems like a throwback of sports, loves ball, all about the guys, the culture in the locker room. I mean, how awesome was that?
He was all time. He's got the juice, bro. He's got the young energy, the philosophy that he carries with himself as far as teaching the kids, implementing culture. You can tell the guys really like him a lot, but he's got the juice. I really like Coach Lanning. And shout out the committee.
Shout out the committee. Okay.
Yeah, shout out the committee.
Love it. Okay, sweet. Last question for you. Nebraska and Michigan, typically the Bussin Bowl, not in the regular season schedule right now. Do we have a another game in the works that's going to kind of serve as like the game for y'all in the fall?
I don't think so. I think if you did that, you'd have to find a Michigan and a Nebraska one because I don't think you could just have one because Taylor and I would kind of bicker. Like, obviously, I would be doing Nebraska. Honestly, it'd be Nebraska, Colorado, week 2. It would be the Bussin Bowl on my version. I don't know what Taylor's would be. Do they play Notre Dame? I bet it'd be like Notre Dame. They play.
Yeah, I don't think they play Notre Dame this year, but they got Ohio State.
You got Ohio State, but Ohio State's already a themed game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like Texas, Oregon. I mean,
right. I think it'd be too hard logistically to work out. I think we just got to wait until I believe it's 2026 or 2027 with the return of Michigan, Nebraska. Who knows? But unfortunately, we had to add from the Pac-12 that eliminated because it was supposed to be 8 years of playing Michigan back-to-back. So that's why we started the Bussin Bowls because we knew we'd at least have 8 years. And then our podcast probably sucks by then. So, you get better on 8 years, and then all of a sudden we're adding Oregon, Washington, which I think is going to be great for us. Will probably be great for the conference, USC. But it obviously hurts the Bussin Bowl because now it's not 8 years in a row anymore.
100%. Man, we appreciate you taking time for vacation.
Yeah,
come out here,
absolutely.
Up with us, talk to the Young Bucks, man. This is phenomenal, and appreciate all you do for calling.
Thank you, man. JD, thank you.
And that was Will Compton from the recruiting event of the summer, the On3 Elite Series. Will Compton was there. You know who else was there? Guy sitting to my right about now, Josh Newberg, national recruiting analyst for us here at On3, host of the Inside Scoop.
Boy,
first team all everything.
We were getting to it at the On3 Elite Series with some of these interviews. It was great. Everybody was doing their thing. Such an amazing event. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and honestly, one of the best events I've ever been to. Can't wait until next year to do it again and just in the years to come. This is not going away, guys.
I was going to say, this is one of those things that feels like it is the first of its kind and sort of charting the course for potentially other events in this space to sprout up. I mean, who knows? But this is it. This is the event to be at.
And I've been around, like I said, for almost 20 years, and there was a run where camps and combines dominated the summer. Those were the events that you had to be at if you were an elite recruit. Then the opening with Nike had its run for almost 10 years out in Oregon and Eugene in Beaverton at their home base. That faded away a couple years ago, and now the Elite Series is going to be the event of the summer for top recruits.
Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. And I want to brag on you real quick because I got to the event, I guess it was Wednesday morning. We had a full day of interviews the day before. Everyone's on go, everyone's on tilt. And the next day, everyone's kind of trying to recoup a little bit and get rolling. So I got there, stopped at the office early in the morning, got there right around 9 for the actual event. And I see you, and I'm like, Josh, are you already rolling? You go, dude, I interviewed 5 kids already. You kid? Like I've been going, brother. You talk to everybody and anybody. Just your overall impressions of some of those guys you talked to, and maybe just your overarching thoughts on some highlights from those interviews.
Yeah, not to be corny, but this is a great group of individual recruits, kids, young men, young adults, whatever you want to call them. It's really a great group, and one of the things I found out was not found out, but there's no such thing as package deals. I mean, I know we always like to say, oh, this group of guys is going to go and link up at this school, but each and every one of these recruits has a great family around them, has their own kind of universe around them, and they're all making huge decisions. And there's just no way. Yes, some of these guys will link up on the next level and be on the same team together, but there's no such thing as a package deal. Everybody is making the best decision for themselves. Also, just the amount of talent that was here. We're going to look back on this, some of the photos, some of the things that we got, and be like, wow, they were together, And with the transfer portal, who knows if these guys are going to end up on the same team, or they might end up on very different teams. But just to look back and watch these guys flourish on the next level, we know they will.
It's all happening in real time.
We know they will.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool.
Grant Firkin said it during one of the dinners. He's like, Heisman Trophy winners are in this room.
Yeah.
First-round picks are in this room, which is a very cool realization to have when you're sitting with some of the top athletes in the country all in the same place. You're like,
and you can make a case nearly for any of them to live up to that hype. I mean, we don't know how it'll work out. Injuries, things happen along the way. Guys fall to the wayside, but some of the guys in our room will be first-round picks.
If you're
some
playing,
of them will be up for the Heisman. It's crazy.
If you're playing the percentages, you're probably feeling pretty good about putting a statement out there that, yeah, maybe the Heisman Trophy winner was in that room.
And I also shout out to all the parents that came.
Yeah.
A lot of parents, and shout out to all the parents that watch this channel, because last night they were all in the office. We had a big event, a tailgate style event here at On3 headquarters. So many of the parents walked by and said, "Oh, I know that shot. Oh, that's the shot on YouTube. Okay, I've seen that on and
the Inside Scoop."
Yeah, everybody was mentioning how they watch the On3 or On3 Recruits channel, so that was really cool.
It was phenomenal, man. Well, speaking of the On3 Recruits channel and the Inside Scoop, one, subscribe, because there's a ton of content coming on there that's already either out there from the event or still on their way from the event that's getting uploaded and edited. There was not, to me at least, as a consumer of the Inside Scoop, a more anticipated conversation than the one you had with Julian Lewis. What was that like?
It was fun. I thought he was great for that, because Julian Lewis does a ton of interviews. He gets a lot of the same questions. I try not to ask the same questions, but I know that he's been through it, and I watched him do a couple interviews with Chad and Steve Wiltfong, and they weren't on camera, and he was kind of a little bit more reserved, a little bit more insulated, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see what we get out of this interview. And he was phenomenal. We sat down at the desk, and he actually, I just wanted to get him in, get him out, do our thing. But he started chatting with me a little bit before as we were setting up, and he seemed like, okay, I'm ready for this interview. And I was like, well, I'm ready for this interview too. And it was great. I found out from Julian that I think that USC, they do provide him a lot of things that other schools can't provide him. Not just Lincoln Riley, and that is a big one that other schools can't provide. Lincoln Riley is in LA, but just the city of LA and the things that can provide for him. And he made a distinction that, he loves Carrollton, Georgia, but LA is where he wants to be.
Interesting. So you came away from that one feeling more confident that, okay, he's sticking with that commitment of USC.
Way more confident.
Really? Okay, interesting.
I thought, I don't want to say I thought it was inevitable, because obviously if it was that easy, he would have decommitted already, but there was reasons why he was committed to USC. But having talked to him, I can kind of understand more from his perspective. Now, I did grill him on a lot of other topics just to see where he stood, but what he said in the beginning of that interview about USC kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think so many of these kids, and this event's a tremendous part of that, they're becoming more and more savvy, feels like the right word, to the business of college football. NIL is a factor, and we sat down with Deuce Knight, and I believe you may have done that as well, and Deuce the Scoop did as well. He just was basically saying, I'm locked in with Notre Dame, but also I understand, stuff can change in 6 months. Coaches leave, people leave, stuff happens, but kind of maybe the similar vibe with Julian Lewis.
Yeah,
was
but
I'm pretty locked
Deuce
in.
Knight's not taking visits. I mean, I know USC fans get in the comment section a lot on my videos and talk about, well, how come you talk about Julian Lewis so much about all these other programs? Well, he's visiting other programs.
Yes.
If Julian Lewis wasn't visiting other programs, I wouldn't be talking about him. I wouldn't be talking about him nearly as much, I should say. But he has a whole slate of visits, and I asked him, at some point, are you going to shut this down? Because at some point, you got to start building the class around you.
Yeah.
You're a top recruit. You can't go it alone. You got to build a great class around you. And if he's going to stick with USC, if he's going to flip, no matter what he's going to do, he's going to want to solidify that. He told me by probably end of July, early August, sometime during the summer, he's going to actually shut it down. And at that point, we can put all the rumors to bed and say he's locked into USC or he's, going to XYZ. So there is reason to talk about Julian Lewis when it comes to other programs, because he is looking at other options. So all that being said, I really like where USC stands.
Sure. And you talk about there being other schools in the mix for him. There's not a more polarizing school and a more polarizing coach than Colorado and their involvement with him. Did you get a gauge for where things stand with him in Colorado?
I think they're in the
locked
second
into
spot.
USC?
I think they're in the 2 spot.
Really?
I know for a lot of this time, it was maybe Auburn. Of course, Georgia was a main player until they took Ryan Montgomery and effectively took themselves out. Georgia's not in the Julian Lewis sweepstakes anymore because they took Ryan Montgomery. So at that point, it seemed like, wow, Hugh Freeze, he could go into Carrollton, Georgia, land at 5-star. I would pump the brakes on that a little bit. Now, Auburn's going to get another crack at him. He will be on campus, but look at what Deion Sanders and Juju Lewis have going on, and I think it's something worth watching. Right now, I would probably put them in the 2 spot.
DeCorian Moore still yet to make his decision. Decommitted from LSU not that long ago. Ohio State's getting a visit. Texas getting a visit. Oregon getting a visit. What was your vibe from him after sitting down and talking with
My
him?
vibe is I love where Texas stands for DeCorian Moore out of Duncanville High School. Colin Simmons is recruiting him really hard. The edge rusher that's currently on the Texas Longhorn roster went to Duncanville, and he is in DeCorian Moore's ear. But this weekend, DeCorian Moore will go to Ohio State for an official visit. And even though I feel really good about where Texas stands right now, we might be singing a different tune after spending a weekend in Columbus with Brian Hartline.
It's one of those things where if he were to end up committing to Ohio State, I don't think anybody would be like, wow, how does that work? Why Ohio State? It's like, oh, Brian Hartline, they pump out NFL receivers. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And they just put up big numbers. You know, the numbers don't lie. And I think DeCorian Moore, although if you talk to anybody that interacted with DeCorian Moore this week, you would feel like he's going to Texas. But this is why things change, because they're young men and their opinions change on a whim, and they can, because visits are so impactful. Like you said, you get to spend a weekend and kind of learn all about it, and you come out, you might be feeling a little bit differently. But heading into this trip, and there's more trips to come for DeCorian Moore, I like Texas.
What about Oregon? Because they're getting the third visit. He's got to go to Ohio State and Texas, which I think people feel – if you had to put like a confidence meter between those two would get the most votes out of these three. Rather, I would assume. Is there a world where he doesn't make a visit to Oregon? And doesn't end up going
No. There's so many connections there. He's got great relationships with the staff. It runs deep at Oregon. Fully expect him to be in Eugene for an official visit, and of course, the Ducks are going to roll out the red carpet and make it really hard for him to say no.
If you just get me in a uniform, and I'm a high school kid, and I get to see myself in the Kelly Green or the highlighters, I'm like, yeah, I could see myself rocking some Nike gear for the next 3 to 4 years.
And look, Oregon's making a hard press for Duncanville quarterback Keelan Russell, who's committed to SMU. They're going to also bring him on a visit. They were the most recent to offer him. And Oregon has Akili Smith Jr. committed, but we all know they're looking for 2 quarterbacks this cycle, and they're pressing for Keelan Russell. So imagine if Keelan Russell ends up at Oregon. I mean, that just dials up the pressure for DeCorian Moore as well.
One of the most impressive human beings from this entire week, David Sanders. One, it was just always smiling. Seemed like he had a good attitude. He was happy to be there, and not like a overwhelmingly like, hey, look at me kind of way. It was just like a dude was giving off a great vibe, honestly. Also, he's massive. He's an NFL player in a high schooler's situation. I don't want to say high schooler's body because he's in an NFL player's body at this point in time for what I can stand or for what I can see. David Sanders, what do you think about him? He's got to make a decision here.
I mean, hey, he's still smaller than his dad, though.
I
think his dad still has like an inch on him. He's 6'5.5", and I think his dad has about an inch on him. But yeah, David Sanders, he's like the epitome of, if you were gonna, if we were giving out like superlatives, I would give David Sanders future face of a program. If all goes well and he is what we think he's going to be, he's not only going to be a great player, but he's going to be the face of a franchise, whether that's at the college level or NFL level. And if he doesn't make it to the NFL level, he'll be the mayor of that city that he ends up in. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, he just had that about him. You're right. He wasn't a flashy guy, but he had something about his infectious personality that you just wanted to be around it. You wanted to see what David Sanders had to say. And a lot of it comes from his family because his mom and dad were here, and he's just a mere image of them. So David Sanders, though, this weekend he'll be in Clemson. I know up until this weekend there's been so much talk about Georgia and Tennessee, but this weekend David Sanders goes to Clemson, and this is a big one. They hired Matt Luke in the offseason, a huge hire that, kind of maybe put things in Clemson's favor. But these visits to Knoxville, these visits to Columbus have added up. Now it's Clemson's shot. They'll get him on big official visit weekend.
I believe it was you when you sat down with him. He said, hey, Tavian St. Clair and George McIntyre are both respectively recruiting me to Tennessee and Ohio State, harder than some of these coaches. Where do the Buckeyes and the Vols sit for the top uncommitted prospect in America?
It's a tug of war between those two committed quarterbacks. And the funny thing is George and Tavian were here, and David Sanders. So it was another time for David Sanders to be recruited by his buddies. I don't know. Every time I see the pictures of him and George hanging out in Knoxville, it looks really fun. You see him in the scarlet and gray, and you're like, damn, he really looks good in the scarlet and gray as well. And both these teams were kind of runners-up last year for Jordan Seaton, the number one offensive tackle in America. So, once again, one of these two teams is going to be runner-up. Or maybe, unless Clemson comes in and spoils the whole party. And then they're both runners-up for the number one offensive tackle in America. But don't sleep on the Georgia Bulldogs either.
That's going to be one that's really interesting to watch because there's so many teams in the mix for his
There's going to be some heartbreak there.
Going to be interesting, man.
But there's going to be some celebrations happening in one of those
exactly.
cities.
Somebody's getting a future, what feels like to me a future NFL player, and I think the rankings indicate that as well. Want to get your opinion on this, Josh. Because the setting is so unique compared to a camp or an all-star game, like these guys are literally just here to learn about how they can help themselves from an NIL perspective and from a life after football perspective. With that being the case, we get a chance to watch these guys interact with their peers and how they interact in a classroom setting. At the quarterback position, there's so much being thrown at these guys now. It's not just can you read the defense, it's can you be the face of essentially a franchise. I know I'm saying franchise and it's college football, but the face of a program at this point in time at a very young age. Who was impressive to you when it comes to like being in that mold of an adult, of a like I said, face the franchise kind of format?
Well, we talked a lot about George and Tavian already, and I think if you're going to be the face of the franchise, face of the program, the one thing you got to do is recruit. You got to be the bell cow. I think that's an important part of it, and both those guys have those characteristics. But I'd also comment on a few others. I mean, Keelan Russell really carried himself well, even though he's committed to SMU. He's trying to be respectful of that program while also looking at his options, and I thought he did a great job of eloquently kind of explaining his situation. Matt Zollers has the it factor. Like he doesn't walk around like a blue chip quarterback. Like
he does,
how
man.
You would expect a blue chip quarterback.
How I want my quarterback to act.
He shakes your hand like how you want your quarterback to shake your hand. Like he's cut from that like John Elway type mold, But all these Deuce Knight was great. He's committed to Notre Dame, rock solid there. A great relationship with him and Will Black, the offensive tackle that's committed to Notre Dame. You could see that those two guys really had a give and take relationship. It was really cool to see. And then Bryce Underwood.
Yep.
I mean, Bryce Underwood and Juju Lewis were kind of like the Pied Pipers. I felt like even without obviously Harlan Berry and Bryce Underwood were like inseparable, the two LSU commitments. But I saw a lot of players, not just quarterbacks, circling around Juju, circling around Bryce Underwood. They kind of had that vibe to him as well. So phenomenal group of guys.
Kind of the buzz of
you had a great experience with Bryce Baker.
I was about to say, man, in terms of
I didn't sit down with him.
So we sat down with him right after the live show finished up. Got a chance to chop it up a little bit, of talk about why North Carolina and where he's at currently with making that transition to the college level. Heard a rumor, I can't prove this, heard a rumor that during this whole event, Bryce Baker talks to his dad and says, hey, I got to go throw. I got to get the wing loose a little bit. So they go to a park. Again, can't prove this. Is what I heard. Goes to a park in Nashville, and he just got a workout in. And it's like, okay, you're in Nashville. It's an event to kind of celebrate where you're at right now, and it's an event to interact with your peers. And he's like, man, I got to get some work in. That to me said a lot. I thought was really impressive. If that ends up being the case,
I
then I thought it was cool.
Elite 11, if you're listening, I think here's what we need to do. We need to take the On3 Elite event, and it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, and it ends Thursday. The Elite 11 finals needs to come to Nashville and pick up on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or whatever 3-day event it is. Do the Elite 11 right here in Nashville, because we already got the top quarterbacks here. You invite a couple more, and we got the whole field, and then because I think maybe there needs to be a competition element to this, and maybe it's the Elite 11. Call me.
DM's open on Twitter.
They love LA. I don't think the Elite 11's leaving LA, but I do think like some sort of competition element maybe in the future. I don't know.
It's crazy because we're
spitballing
only in the second year of this thing, and you have to imagine like this year compared to last year. I mean, it was like 10x whatever last year.
Well, it literally was double. We had 25
Legit.
prospects here, and it seemed like a lot. And this year we had 50. I think we could do maybe a couple more.
Incredible, man. Yeah, I mean, a huge tip of the cap, obviously, to Grant Furking and Shannon Terry and the entire On3 Elite team that got this done, man.
Job.
Any final thoughts on this whole Elite Series, whether it's a prospect we haven't talked about yet or someone who was impressive? I mean, just optically, you're like, that's a big human being, like a college athlete.
Well, I think it's a good time to tap in with these guys and hear what they have to say before the visits, because so much is going to change once visits start happening. In June's such a crucial month. It's almost like it's almost like we're at halftime, but the second half is really only 4 or 5 weeks. Like the first half is from February until the end of May, and then the second half is like the beginning of June when official visits start. By July 4th and 5th, we'll have a ton of 5-stars starting to commit. by July 15th, we'll have more. By mid-August, I think like 80% probably of the top 150, 250 will be off the board committed, because a lot of these guys want to make that decision before their senior year start. They want to lock in their spot. They want to avoid distraction. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reasons, and they also take their June official visits and then sit down with their parents and spend a month or so, talk it over, and then commit. So it's good to tap in with them right now and hear what they have to say, knowing that these visits are going to change some things, and it's going to be a run to some commitments here soon.
It's going to be fun, man. Before we know it, we'll be at this desk just tied to this thing for like 5-6 hours, for whatever it ends up being on National Signing Day, talking about these kids, putting pen to paper. But, again, phenomenal event here in Nashville. And Josh Newberg of the Inside Scoop, the On3 Recruits channel, subscribe there, covered it better than anybody else in the entire industry. Josh, you're the man. Appreciate you,
brother.
We had
a blast. Thank you.
Again, that's Josh Newberg. Held it down out here in Nashville. We sat down with Tennessee quarterback commit George MacIntyre. Talk about a guy who's going to be the face of a school and the face of a program out there. Vol fans, get excited. Here's our conversation with G-Mac. Here at the On3 Elite Series with Tennessee quarterback commit. The man, it's a home game for you, George MacIntyre. How we feeling, man? Having fun at the event? Obviously not your first time in Nashville, as you are from Nashville. But how you liking it so far?
Yeah, it's been great. Being able to connect with a lot of top guys and, a lot of media here. So it's been a lot of fun.
Got the ice too, man. You're dressing to impress.
GLD just blessed me.
Looks good. Blessed me. You got the Tennessee wristband too. We were talking too before we got over here. How nice is it to be at an event like this? A lot of guys uncommitted, trying to figure out the next phase, and you're like, hey, I'm locked in, man. I know where I'm going. It's right down the road. I mean, is that just so much of a weight off the shoulders going to something like this?
Yeah, for sure. I think once you commit, your main, as a quarterback at least, your main job is to recruit, and I think this is a great ground to do that in. We got a lot of top guys, got a lot of my friends, got a lot of Tennessee prospects, stuff like that. So it's definitely a working weekend.
We got the that recruiting hat on. Who are we after? Who are we going after this weekend?
I'll say number one, David Sanders. I think he's the number one target that we have now, uncommitted. The whole building knows that. The whole university knows that. It's David time. And then Jamie Fringe is big. We like him. We like him a lot. He's really cool. He was just here last weekend. Him and David were together. Cool. We're all kicking it in Neyland. Travis Smith's here. He's a really good player. We like him a lot. I actually just was able to meet him just now. This is what we're talking about,
cool.
Connecting, getting to connect here. This would never happen without On3. So,
dude, David Sanders is massive.
Massive.
Like walking through here, and I'm like, that's an NFL offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah.
Just like walking around in a high schooler's, I guess, eligibility, if that's the right word. I mean, that's massive. What are the conversations like with him to get into Tennessee?
So me and Dave have been friends for a long time. We've connected on Clemson visits, Alabama visits. We didn't know where we were going. We stayed friends all throughout. He's always like Tennessee, telling me before I was between Tennessee and Bama, and he was texting me, hey, Tennessee.
There you go.
I'm thinking Tennessee more. So, I think now we've switched positions, and now I'm saying you got to come to Tennessee. So, he's been great. Yeah, he's a great dude.
That's awesome, man. Obviously, Josh Heupel has majored in recruiting and developing quarterbacks. Is there a lot of communication between you and some of the guys already in that room? Jake Merklinger was here last year. Nico's obviously there right now. What's the communication like between guys that are already on the roster?
Yeah, I mean, while I'm there, we hang out, sit in the quarterback meeting and stuff like that. They're all good people, all good dudes. Jake, Nico, Gaston, a couple more. Coach Halsey, Coach Mitch, they do a great job in there. Coach Heupel sits in the quarterback room almost every day. So, their quarterback support system is very, very good.
So is it already okay, we're digesting the offense, even though we still got our senior season to play? You're starting to pick up the installs, or how heavy is that on your end?
Funny thing is, this is my fourth offense this year in high school.
Right.
Actually, I had an OC switch. So I had 3 OCs, 4 offenses. So, I'm going to say definitely I'm more focused on learning BA's offense this year.
Sure.
But, I think my sophomore year, we ran a lot of stuff that was, wide split, vertical option, stuff like that. It was very similar. I really enjoyed being in it, and maybe I have a little bit of head start just from running that.
And this is probably the bad question to ask, but is there a thought process for you of okay, come in and maybe redshirt a year, or is there a discussion between you and the staff at this point with what that blueprint could look like for you when you get to Knoxville?
I think it definitely came up in recruiting talk, stuff like that. But I don't want them to set a path for me. I don't want them to have me in some position where I'm the next guy or something. I just want to go in there every day and attack every day like I'm the starter. And then, when it comes time for me to be the starter, I'll be ready to kill.
I love that. That's a quarterback answer right there, baby. That's a face the franchise kind of answer. We talked to a couple other guys about this same thing, because right now in modern college football, there is so much being thrown at you, period, much less to be in your position as a quarterback committed to a major school like Tennessee. how do you handle being able to maximize the opportunities off the field, but also be able to keep the main thing and be more or less the face of a franchise?
Yeah, I would say my parents help a lot. With negotiations between schools and all the other brands and stuff. Them and my agents kind of handle all of it, and then they bring it to me. I say yes or no, and I sign the paper or don't sign the paper. So
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. They've kept a lot of weight off my shoulders where I keep the main thing. And I think the big thing about Tennessee is their NIL support is always started. Like Coach Habble's always been an advocate for NIL. Like he basically got it legalized in Tennessee. He's always thought players should be compensated for their play and stuff like that. So, feeling good that the sports system comes from the top where I'm committed to.
For sure. Yeah, Donda Plowman is just like out there dunking on all the other legislation. I don't pretend to know all of it, but I know she's doing work.
Oh, yeah. And
making it happen.
Danny White, Austin will tell you about it. They're all good people.
They're going to work. They're going to work, man. Well, let's leave you with this. We're about to jump into the senior campaign for George McIntyre. Any goals we got set out before we call it a career at Brentwood Academy?
Man, it wouldn't feel right leaving without a state championship in football. I've done it in basketball. I've seen them do it in track. Growing up, the reason I went to BA is because we won every year and everything. And I think we got to bring it back to that way starting this year. So there it is. Nashville's very own playing recruiter this week at the On3 Elite Series. George McIntyre. George, appreciate you, brother. Best of luck. Appreciate y'all having me.
Excited to watch you, man. Yes. Again, face the franchise kind of guy for Tennessee, landon George McIntyre. He's committed to the Vols. He's locked in with the Vols. He's not one of those guys where you're like, where's his final decision going to be? Like, no, he's going to Knoxville, and he's fired up about it. So in the future, you're going to be able to play college football 27, 28, 26, I believe, as well, with George McIntyre on the roster for Tennessee. However, we're getting college football 25 here, y'all. July 19th. It's going to be a movie, and a lot of folks now got to have a little quick peek at what's going on in Orlando, or what's going on with that game they got to play in Orlando. Our very own Andy Staples has got a full, I think it's like a 30-minute segment that he did on yesterday's live show, talking about his experiences playing that game, breaking it down, everything you need to know. He also did a tremendous Q&A on his live show this morning. Those are both on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the coverage around college football or college football 2025, the game that we're getting here from EA Sports. I want us to do a segment together here, taking that info from Andy that we've been able to gather, taking info from other articles we have been able to gather, and just do a what we're hearing segment, what we know segment, or we think we know around college football 25. Worth noting, since we've been on the air, the EA Sports Twitter account, YouTube account, they're saying they got a gameplay deep dive video dropping tomorrow. So we'll have some more thoughts on that when we get to next week. But here's what I would say we can confidently say after some of the folks that we trust have played this game. Again, most notably Andy Staples, that is here at On3 with us. The vibe should be high. The vibe should be tremendously, tremendously high around this new game. Because if this game sucked, if this was just a Madden clone, as Andy Staples would say, then we would know. We would know by now, because you got people that truly care about this game the way that we care about this game that are saying, hey, it's spectacular, it's phenomenal, the gameplay is extremely realistic, the detail is ridiculous. I want to go back to that gameplay. Andy Staples talked a lot about this. The way that it plays, the concern for I think a lot of us was, is this going to just be Madden? Is it going to be just the same game as Madden but with college football jerseys? Obviously, they're both football games, so there's going to be some similarities, but the overwhelming majority is saying this game plays faster than Madden, and they talk a lot about running the ball being much more realistic in this game than it has been in previous versions of the game. Excuse me, getting choked up talking about it. What you hear a lot of is, as a running back, if you hit the hole at full speed and you're able to follow your blockers, you become rewarded for that much more than you have been in previous games. And I'll say this too, having played the running back position, timing, getting downhill, being able to move off of your blocks, reading your blocks, all those things in the actual sport of football when you play it, that's what pays dividends for you as a ball carrier. So that we're incorporating that into the game, that's massive. That's going to be phenomenal. I cannot wait for that. The read option game too, that paired with the RPO game sounds like it's going to be a lot more realistic as well. This is something Andy Staples told us, and I think he said this on his live show as well. It used to be in the read option game, you had to press X to give it to your running back. Now you press X to pull it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the read option. Your running back's right next to you. You're the quarterback. The running back comes across your face, and you have the ball in his belly. It's called the mesh point. During that mesh point, You look at your read defender, your run defender, whatever verbiage you want to use there. You're watching more than likely the defensive end. If he crashes and comes after the running back, you pull it. It used to be you had to not press anything to be able to pull it. Now it's much more realistic where when you press X, you pull it. And that's how it is in real life as well. You make a decision to pull the ball because the rule in college football, or the rule in football rather, when you're coaching it up, it is a give until it's not. You're giving it to the running back unless you see something that forces you to take action or press X to pull the football. Y'all, we get 134 playbooks in this game. One for every single team. 134 unique playbooks. That's incredible. That's incredible. I read one article, I think it was from The Athletic. If you want to do that slow mesh that Wake Forest is known for in the RPO game, kind of where you put the ball in the running back's belly and you're sort of riding it to the very last second up to the line of scrimmage, then you pull it and let it go, you can do that. That's in the game. Senior quarterbacks are going to be a lot more in tune with what they're seeing on the field as a freshman may not be as in tune, meaning you might have some keys where you can see, okay, hey, there's probably a blitz coming from there. Hey, when I go to check my play pre-snap, everything is looking as it would with the play that I selected. Instead of you have like a question mark over a receiver, you don't know what route he's running, all those things. So the realism of a real college football game and how a senior probably is a little bit more aware of the defense than a freshman would be, that's in there. Looks incredible. Andy Staples really harped on the details that we're getting in this game outside of the playbooks. This was incredible, and I was really excited to hear this one. They have unique and specific band formations for all the college football teams. So think about it this way, like Script Ohio, the Ohio State band, before the game, when you dot the I in Script Ohio, and that's like an iconic thing in college football, that's in the game. When the Vols run through the power T, that's in the game. So all those things being in the game makes me feel a lot of confidence with the way that the designers put it together. Student section's in the right place. You got Ralphie that runs across the field for the Colorado game. You got Penn State, the wideout that's in the game. Like all these things are put together to where you're like, okay, they really put a lot of thought and detail into this sport, which is really what makes college football unique, I think, to any other sport in existence. The pageantry, the tradition that each different school has, and the fact they captured that. This is going to be a movie. Now, Dynasty Mode was something that we were all concerned about and wondering about and had questions about. Sounds like there is a lot of emphasis on roster management. So you can recruit the portal after you finish up your season. However, just like in real life, if you recruit the portal heavily, you have less time to recruit the high school level as heavily. So you kind of have to make some business decisions, scholarship decisions at that level as well. The NIL side of things, I don't believe NIL verbiage is actually in the game. The thing they talk about is brand awareness. So brand awareness points is kind of the equivalent of NIL in this game. And the level of school that you have impacts the conversations you can have on those fronts. So I'm recruiting a high school player. If I am a G5 school, I can't give as many brand awareness points, don't have as many brand awareness points to work with as maybe a P4 blue blood kind of school. NFL exposure also matters in recruiting here. That's in the game. Road to Glory kind of made some waves the other day, and I want us to talk about this for a quick second. All the cool features are there. It sounds like it really takes into account the real day-to-day of a student-athlete because academics is something you have to balance. You have to manage the NIL side of things or brand awareness side of things, have to manage your training, have to manage your being able to make sure that you are ready for Saturday, ready for class, all those things. The big thing people got upset about, though, Road to Glory in this game does not start at the high school level. Because remember, in NCAA 14 and previous games, you would play, I think your senior season, you'd get offers from that and you'd go play wherever you want to play. At first, there was a like, oh man, that's a bummer. But as you really think about it, like, was that not just sort of a waste of time? Like if you wanted to take your quarterback to Oregon State or you wanted to take your quarterback to Tulane, was that not already something you were going to do? Did you really need to play a handful of high school games to go and get that done? No, you didn't. So I think all this outrage about them not having the high school level available in Road to Glory, it's ridiculous. Like, we got Road to Glory. You're going to pick your school. We're going to go play the college career. And that's really what this whole thing is about to begin with. So Road to Glory, no, there's no high school in it. Who cares? Who really cares? It's college football. 25, not high school and college football 25. So I'm all about it. Last thing I'll say, feel very encouraged that we have college football junkies putting this thing together. Because let's call a spade a spade. You could have minimal detail in a game like this and just throw it out there. It could have been a Madden clone. You could have had pretty much standard playbooks across the board, and we would have still bought the game. We would have still, frothed at the mouth, waited in lines overnight to get this game. Why? Because we haven't had it in forever. Because we're college football psychopaths, and we haven't had our college football game in greater than 10 years. So they didn't have to put this attention into the game to make it incredible. But the fact that they did makes me feel really, again, encouraged about the folks behind closed doors, behind the curtain, that are making this game so detailed and so specific and realistic to college football the way that we love it. So excited about this game. Again, deep dive, it sounds like, dropping tomorrow on the EA Sports or College Football 25 YouTube channel, wherever they're releasing that. We'll have some more thoughts on this as we continue to move forward closer and closer to July 19th, that fateful release day. And I know y'all are fired up about it too, so we appreciate y'all being dialed in. One more segment I want to get to here before we go to the live chat. There was a report that came out this week from Saturday Down South that USC tried for the better part of the last 2 years and as late as this fall to get out of their Week 1 game with LSU in Las Vegas. The report is that Jen Cohen, 2 years ago, the AD for USC, was hustling on this. Lincoln Riley, he's hustling on this. I shouldn't say Jen Cohen. I believe, bottom line, USC for the last 2 years has been trying to get out of this game. Jen Cohen was involved. Lincoln Riley's been involved. I am assuming, I go back and forth on the Jen Cohen thing because I don't think she was there 2 years ago. But Jen Cohen, as late as this fall, was trying to get out of it. Lincoln Riley, over the course of him being at USC, has been trying to get out of this game. So with that kind of out of the way, let's kind of reframe this discussion because that was a just abysmal wander through the beginning of that segment. So here's a better spot for us to start that video, Nick. Saturday Down South reporting USC tried to get out of the game with LSU, and the way this reads on Twitter is that USC is scared of playing LSU and they want to have a softer schedule, and okay, great, USC, they're soft, all this, that, and the other, we're dunking on them if we're LSU fans. And honestly, that's how it reads on the timeline. I don't fault you for that. I understand that. But I think when you look at this from USC's perspective, we would be wise to maybe consider all the vantage points involved in this. Because as a college football fan, when that game starts, that's going to be incredible. When it's Week 1, you finish up Saturday, and you realize, oh, Sunday we get USC and LSU in Vegas. There's more. I'm going to be fired up about that. We're going to talk a lot about that game on this show. However, the goal for USC is not to make an incredible TV product. Like, that's not Lincoln Riley's goal. It's not Miller Moss's goal. Their goal is to win football games and go compete for a conference title and then ultimately compete for a national title. That is their goal. Same deal as LSU. And so if you look at USC and their schedule, like, yeah, LSU's on there. It's going to be a tough game, but also it's worth noting that the rest of their schedule is absolutely whack. It's whack. You got to go to Michigan, you play Wisconsin, you play Penn State, and oh, by the way, you play Notre Dame. So if I'm trying to make the college football playoff, I don't think it's unwise to assume that 10-2 is probably right around that number you need to have to get in if we're using last year as our litmus test. 9-3 was the number 13 ranked team in the country last year. I believe that was LSU, which is it was LSU. If I'm judging you in a class on your final grade and I tell you ahead of time, hey, that first test that we got to give you, it's going to be the hardest of all the tests. So if you want to find a way to get out of it, if you want to trade that test with someone else, you want to push that to another year, and we'll judge you on that grade then, want to take some time to get prepared for it, great. But just know that first test is the toughest. Would you not do everything in your power to try and get out of that test? How many of us, if we were told, hey, we can drop one test score during our years in college, the first one's the toughest. Yeah, I'm not even going to show up. I'm going to drop that test. Does it look bad? Absolutely. You know what looks worse is showing up to that test on national television, not being prepared for it, and failing. USC, and I know this wasn't the case 2 years ago exactly, but they are clearly right now trying to get their feet underneath them. Sounds like the AD Jen Cohen, as late as this past fall, was trying to get out of this game. New conference, new DC, new defensive staff, new quarterback. A lot of newness with this team. I don't blame them for wanting to try and set themselves up for success in 2024. I think if you were to tell me they get LSU in a future season and maybe it's going to line up to where they have a softer conference schedule, if that's somehow the way the cards fall for USC, I don't know how they would. Okay, great. But I don't fault Lincoln Riley for saying we want to win football games, and us playing LSU does not help us when it comes to our postseason aspirations, more likely than not. So say what you want about Lincoln Riley. Say what you want about how this reads, but I do not believe by any stretch of the imagination that anyone in that locker room is like, oh, man, I hope we don't play LSU. Like, I promise you, as a competitor, as someone who's in a college football locker room, you're not thinking about, wow, I don't want to play that team. You're like, bring it on. We think we're one of the best. Internally, we have confidence in ourselves. Let's roll. Let's get after it. So I get it. I understand where Lincoln Riley's coming from. I don't think anyone's being soft. I don't think anyone's being scared. I think it's just, honestly, a good business decision if you're USC. And the fact they didn't get out of it, though, I am, as a college football fan, selfishly pretty fired up about. So we'll get this game week 1, but some storyline juice there from Saturday Down South, talking about USC trying to get out of that game with LSU. Let me know in the comment section how y'all feel about that one, man. Let me know how you feel about that one. All right. Speaking of how you feel, let's go to the live chat right now and hear how y'all feel about just the college football world, period, and what's on your mind there. I got time for 3 questions. Bringing in that man, the myth, the legend, Nick Brake, to break it all down, pun intended. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man?
Busy week.
New look over here.
Busy week, man. How you doing?
Good. It has been a busy week,
Yeah, but hey,
but a fun one.
what's the old saying? I can't complain about my plate being full. My goal was to eat. You know? You ever hear
I've
that?
not heard of that.
Really?
That's
Okay.
nice.
Well, I think that fits here.
That's nice.
That fits. Yeah. What's going on in the chat today, brother?
A.B. Bailey. Haven't seen A.B. Bailey in a while, so welcome back. Big Texas fan, so he's asking about Texas A&M. Says, why are they considered a playoff contender every year, even though they've never been in a playoff, or in the history from the Big 12 days, they were never really an elite team either? What do
So
you think?
that's a great question, and that's something actually I think around this time last year, or maybe it was after the season ended, there was someone in the local news realm that put out essentially that same sentiment via a minute clip. And it got a lot of traction. And the sentiment that's being communicated here from our friend A.B. Bailey is Texas A&M, they don't have a history of like making the college football playoff or winning the conference year in and year out. So why do we keep looking at A&M and saying, yep, they deserve to be considered in that playoff discussion, in that conference title discussion? The reason for that being, I think in modern college football, input equals output. So being arrogant is one thing, and I'm sure in every single fan base you could find an arrogant fan. I don't think that's untrue. But when it comes to your expectations, those to me should be based on what you're doing to get that output. Going back to input. Look at input, A&M, as well-resourced as anyone in America. A&M has been on fire on the recruiting trail over the course of the last 5 seasons. Now, the portal did what the portal did in terms of guys leaving A&M. But I think if you're an A&M fan, like, your expectations aren't rooted in the brand. The expectations, for me, are rooted in what you have done to put together a roster and put together an approach that should compete for national championships. People dunk on Jimbo Fisher, and if it's me, yeah, I probably wouldn't give him a trophy that says national championship year 20 and then fill in the blank, assuming he's going to win a national championship. That, to me, is a little bit cart before the horse. But he won a national title at Florida State. On paper, that was the guy that was supposed to get you over the hump with all the resources and the way that he was recruiting. So I get it. I do. But I also understand the thought that, hey, if you haven't been to the mountaintop before, maybe stop talking about the mountaintop and stop telling us you're going to climb that mountain. But again, I go back to input and output, and I think A&M has had really good input over the course of the last really decade or so.
JD Ferriscon wants to know if Bryce Underwood would have committed to Michigan with the new compensation rules that we now have.
So I'm not 100% privy to the situation with Michigan and the state and the NIL. I'm assuming they're saying, hey, Michigan, you can now – or there's some new realization there when it comes to NIL rules in that state? Is what I'm assuming here, Nick. Is that accurate, we think?
Yeah, I think so.
From Ferris? Okay, so let's go ahead and say that's the case. I still think that Brian Kelly and LSU and the way they've developed at the quarterback position is probably attractive to a one Bryce Underwood. He talked about how he talks to Jaden Daniels. We had him actually in studio yesterday. We'll release that interview on this channel at some point. So, again, subscribe. Another reason for you. I think it is about playing in the SEC. I think it is about the brand of LSU. I think it is about the fact that if you're a guy who's Bryce Underwood's age, you kind of gained consciousness in college football right around that time that Joe Burrow and that team in 2019 put up arguably the greatest offensive season of all time. So could Michigan make a push if that had been the case and it had been better set up from a legal perspective in the NIL department? Again, that's a big if. I'm assuming I'm on the right track there. Maybe, but I do think that LSU ultimately is just offers too many things for him and checks too many boxes. So I think LSU is still that team.
Yep. JD, a lot of great questions. We got to get out of here, though, because we got a live hit coming in here with different people using the studio, so we'll get to one more. Acrylic says, JD, can Missouri's Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel recreate what Cody Schrader did last year in the aggregate? Got a couple of really good pieces on the offensive line and the portal to help. What do you think about Missouri? We don't talk about them a whole lot.
Don't talk a whole lot of Mizzou. Excuse me. Again, supply and demand. I'd love to talk more Mizzou. I love Eli Drinkwitz. I think they're phenomenal. Matt Zollers was in Nashville this week. He looks like a stud. Again, talking about swag, the way he carries himself, exactly how I want my quarterback to carry myself. When it comes to replacing Cody Schrader, I think what you said is on the money. It is not going to be a thing where you just say, oh, great, we have someone who's going to lead America in rushing yards this year. Phenomenal. It's more of a thing of, okay, can we, again, in the aggregate, equip our offense to still have that running threat? I don't know that I would bank on that as much. I think what I would ask of my offense, if I'm a Missouri fan, is, okay, Brady Cook, can we even take another step? Can we lighten the box even more with Luther Bird and that connection to give our running game a little bit of a better chance? So I don't think the offense will look drastically different, but I would guess that you're probably going to lean a little bit more on Brady Cook with another year of experience under his belt. So yeah, I'm sitting on the fence there a little bit. I think they'll be fine in the run game, but I don't think it's like a thing where you have a back that's going to lead college football in rushing yet again.
Yep. Well, Jordan, Dustin, Craig, The Truth, come back on Tuesday. We got to have a fresh live chat for us to talk in then. JD?
Should be good stuff, man. Nick, appreciate you, brother, holding it down all week long at the W on this show. We got pre-recorded shows. We got interviews. We got live commitment from the top of a hotel yesterday. Love it, man. Good stuff, Big Nick. Appreciate you, brother. Big Nick Break, making everything that you see here happen. We appreciate y'all making this show happen, getting in the live chat, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, getting after them on the podcast front as well. We appreciate y'all so much for that. Y'all are what makes this show what it is. We are enormously thankful for that. We are very, very grateful for all those things that y'all do for this show. We consider ourselves extremely lucky to have a dream job. Talking about college football every day. Are you kidding me? And then you get a check at the end of the week for that? It's still hilarious, but we are going to ride this thing out for all it's worth. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all